Because Keir Starmer's leadership does look far from certain today, with backbenchers calling for either his chief of staff to be sacked or for the Prime Minister himself to step down after revelations about Lord Mandelson's dealings with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, the fulsome apology from the Prime Minister yesterday has done little to silence critics who see the appointment of Mandelson as Ambassador to the United States as a serious, unforgivable lapse of judgement. Let's speak to Byrne, Labour MP for Liverpool West Derby. Byrne MP, thanks so much for being with us and good morning to you. I know you've said a few things about this to other broadcasters over the past few days. I wonder where you are this morning, having had time, I guess, to sleep on it and think about the Prime Minister's position. Is his position untenable at this stage?
I think, like so many Labour MPs at the moment, you're just extremely angry that, we're in this position. We're talking about this disastrous political decision which was made by the Prime Minister and looks like his advisers as well. And Mandelson should never ever be near that post with what was known about him. And these flags, these red flags were there. People were really talking about why he shouldn't be in that position. I always remember reading John McDonnell put a post out saying to the Prime Minister, do not put that man in that position. John's known decades. I listened to Harriet Harman yesterday talk about him as well. So, it was well known what Mandelson was. And then allied to his relationship with Epstein. So I'm so angry that we're not talking and we're not utilising this huge majority of what we've got for the benefit of the country. Instead, these political decisions which have come down the line over the last 18 months and we're on TV talking about it.
What do you make of how Keir Starmer's handled it since? We saw him yesterday saying he's sorry he believed Mandelson's lies, but he said he was lied to and he couldn't have known everything then that he's learned since. He has issued those apologies. Do you want more from him now? What can he do now, in your view?
I think the apology was welcome, to the victims and survivors, of Epstein. But I'm sorry, it doesn't wash with me. It was well known, the character trait of Mandelson, what he was. He's been a huge influence over the Labour Party for a long, long time. Has continued that. He's extremely close with Morgan McSweeney. That's well known within where we work in Westminster. Mandelson had a huge influence, and unfortunately, the Prime Minister, it looks like, has listened to those influences, and he's been put in that role, Mandelson, which he should never have been near. It was well known what he was. So to suddenly say that he lied at an interview during the vetting process, well, I'm a surprise. No, not at all. No, not at all. And what surprises me that the people around the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister himself are actually surprised. And I'm sure he is angry, because I'd be angry if I was him. However, he should have listened. He should have listened to those people who were flagging up that this was a catastrophic appointment, and he didn't, and that's why we're here today.
Surprised that someone has lied before is lying to them again. Look, I tried to get from Mike Tapp whether or not what the why was behind all of this, and why is those red flags, as you point out, Byrne, were there, as many have pointed out. What the why is to why they wanted to overlook some of those concerns. What's your understanding of that? You've mentioned Mandelson being in the party and being known about in the party, but why don't you give our viewers a little sense as to sort of how important, I guess, he is, or was, at least to the Labour Party?
Well, as a lowly backbencher, I'm not privy to what was said within Cabinet and within the halls of number 10 in the rooms. However, what we will do is now see the scale of what was said between them, and hopefully, when the files are released and the Security Committee sees everything and that's put into the public domain, we'll get a full picture of why the Prime Minister made that decision, because ultimately it was his decision. And if Morgan McSweeney and his closeness to Mandelson and this appointment was a result of ignoring those red flags, ignoring those voices that said don't do it, and McSweeney advised the Prime Minister to do that. Well, ultimately, McSweeney's got to look at his own position, but the Prime Minister as well has got to reflect on, he took the advice if it was given, he ignored advice that maybe was given by other parties, and we get to where we are now, which is a catastrophic political situation for the Prime Minister, for the Labour Party, and indeed, more importantly, for the country.
So should he go?
I think he's got to reflect on his position. You know, he's an intelligent man.
But what's that mean?
Look at,
you know, reflect on his position. But would you rather that he went?
I genuinely think he's got to look at the consequences of his actions. You know, what he's enabled by putting Mandelson in that job, and that may come out. You know, we don't know what Mandelson's done within that job while he was in there, because if he's used the same modus operandum which he's used previously, and which we've seen with the emails and the leaks to Epstein and the undermining of Gordon Brown as Prime Minister. Well, God knows what's happened. So for me, you know, he's lost a huge amount of confidence within the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's lost a huge amount of confidence within the country, and he's in a very perilous political situation at this moment, and he needs a miracle. He needs something to turn it round. Now, whether he's got that, and it's quite daft. I'm standing in my office in Liverpool, I'm looking at the miracle of Istanbul, and it feels like half-time at Istanbul here. But Stephen Gerrard, as Keir Starmer got an inner Stephen Gerrard to turn that recovery round, many would doubt that.
Liverpool were 3 down and then came back to win that game, didn't they? So were you suggesting the Prime Minister can pull this back around in a minute? And look, you've talked about the politicians, your sense, John McDonnell, others within the party, but you touched a little bit there on the public as well, because we've got some electoral tests coming up, haven't we? That's going to be a real sort of crucible for how this goes going forward.
No, absolutely. We've got the huge by-election in Greater Manchester, a couple of weeks away. And obviously we've got the elections coming down the line in May, and we'll have to see what happens. They're going to be huge tests for the government, you know, from a public opinion point of view, and going to the polls, and we're going to see
constituents coming to you,
the stark reality.
Have your constituents raised
my constituents? Yeah, my constituents aren't happy at all. I've had Labour Party members resign in disgust of what they're seeing. So I'm losing Labour Party members on the constituency, on the doorsteps. People are so angry on so many different fronts, because unfortunately 18 months there's been some cataclysmic political decisions which have turned into seriously unpopular Prime Minister, and unfortunately we're picking up the pieces. You know, I was suspended for 6 months from the Parliamentary Labour Party for voting to scrap the 2-child limit. Last week, I went to the same lobby with the Labour Party to vote, thankfully, to scrap the 2-child limit. So these 18 months, the political decision-making around Downing Street has been poor, in my opinion.
Well, Byrne, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for chatting to us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Morning.